Rolling.
Okay, so just a note about this, because you probably cut these instructions off of your little doohickey. This is half scale, so all the measurements are half of what you would use on your regular one. And whatever I tell you for this, if you were trying to do it on your regular one, you'd have to double them. So just for your information, you might want to write on there somewhere that 1 inch equals a half an inch equals a quarter inch equals an eighth of an inch equals a 16th of an inch. If you need a little cheat sheet, you might want to write that on here. And that's just because we're using the mini one, and we're using the mini one because that'll take you less time to trace around, less paper, so just less resources, and it'll still get the point across. So on chapter 4, page 74 in this book, 84 in the other book, right? It gives you information about where you can move the darts. And so they label them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So they give you 9 locations. And then down here at the bottom, where your 2 notches are, they call the one closest to the center front, they call that point A. So this had all kinds of other, like this was like A and B before, like up here. So we're tossing that out for a little while, and just for this dart manipulation exercise, the dart leg closest to your center is called A, and the one towards the side seam is called B. And then they tell you, kinda sorta, how to chart each of these locations in the subsequent pages. So I'm gonna give you some information that I think they're not clear on. So for number 1, which is the French dart, they just say put a line there, and they don't tell you where. So all these lines are gonna go to or from, depending on how you think of it, the bust point. So we're using the bust point, not the dart point for these. We'll re-engineer the dart point after we move the dart. But everything's gonna pivot around the bust point. So the bust point's what we're gonna be using, and all of our dart lines will go from whatever location around the shape of the bodice to the bust point, the apex. So for the French dart, like I said, it says to draw a line on the side seam to the bust point, but it doesn't tell you where exactly. On the regular bodice, a good location is about 2 inches up from the side waist corner. So on this little dude, we'll put it 1 inch up from the side waist corner. So position number 1 for the French dart is going to be 1 inch up from the side waist corner, and then you'll draw a line from there straight over to the bust point. So that'll be your first little line that you're going to draw here.
And okay, so on like a full regular pattern, that'd be 2 inches.
Right. And the French dart you can actually move around a little bit. It could be right at the corner if you want it to. So that's something you get to move around. But for our purposes, it'll just be easier if we have it about 1 inch away. Because you have to think about, we have to do something with this, right? And when you fold it, the excess is going to go down, and we don't want to mess with it around this corner. So if we have the dart moved to 1 inch above, our excess will be out of the way, and we won't have to think too hard about that. So the other one that I thought was weird was the bust level, I think, is pretty straightforward. It's just the bust level is squared from the center front and through the bust point. And if you keep going straight across, you can also get your number 2 straight side. So that's just a continuation of the bust level. So square from center front, through apex, straight across, and that'll give you number 2 straight side. Number 3, mid armhole. Oh, I didn't write it down. I thought I came up with some calculation for that. Let me see. For us, let's just do this. Let's put number 3, mid armhole, 3/8 of an inch towards the side seam from the armhole notch. So armhole notch, and then measure 3/8 of an inch towards the side seam and make a little mark there.
The mid
And
armhole?
yeah, for mid armhole. Because they don't tell us exactly where. So we'll just pick that spot, because again, that's a good location for where we have to spin this. 3/8. So here's the armhole notch for where the sleeve fits, the ease control notch. So what we want to do is measure, instead of going up towards the shoulder, we're going to go down towards the side seam 3/8 of an inch and put a mark. And then you'll draw a line from that mark down towards the bust point.
So in the big version it'd be 6/8.
3/4, yeah. Shoulder tip is just right on the corner, so self-explanatory. Self-explanatory, I think. So number 4, shoulder tip, is right at the corner. Number 5, mid-shoulder, should just be the middle of the shoulder. And then number 5, number 5 is mid-shoulder. Number 6 would be mid-neck, right? Do they have that on there? I didn't write a number. Yeah, number 6, mid-neck. Let me give you a measurement, because what I did was I folded it and then I didn't like where it was, so then I measured it and tweaked it a little bit. I think the easiest direction to measure is from the shoulder, because it's less curvy there than going from the center front neck. So if you come down from the high point shoulder, I thought it was an inch, but I think it's maybe 1 1/8 inches. Yeah, so come down from the high point shoulder 1 1/8 inches and make a little mark, and that'll be our mid neck. And then number 7, center front neck, is just from center front neck. And then we already talked about 8, center front bust. It's just the line squared through that we use for number 2. Number 9, center front waist, is the same as always. And then for your A and B lines, you're just going to draw those straight to the apex. So not to your dart vanishing point that we gave you on that little thing, but all the way up to your apex. So I think that's enough for this setup. You're going to trace some of these off, and we'll count how many. I think it's 5. And usually what I do when I trace these off is I start by drawing the center front line, so I figure out where they're going to be, like how I need it to fit on the paper. I'm not going to worry about seam allowance. I line up my ruler. I draw a straight line for the center front. I line my center front up with that straight line that I drew, and then I trace around it, like I did here. And it doesn't matter which direction, so I was just conserving paper, and I spun them around, and I just drew them on the paper. So the first one that it tells you to do on page, looks like it might start on page 77 in this book, so probably 87 in the other book, is the center front waist dart. So I'll draw a line. And I'm not gonna like cut it out. Yeah, I'll do one where I fully cut it out, just so you can see. Too close. So I draw a line so I can make sure and get my center front straight. Line my pattern up with that line. Trace it off. And then the first one is the mid-waist dart, or center front waist dart. It's the first one not in the order that we just went through them, but in the order in the book for slash and spread. The first one is the center front waist dart, so I don't really need to copy any of my markings. I just need my bust point. So I need to trace around the whole thing and grab my bust point. And then square off my squishy corners. And then I'm going to just draw a line from my center front waist to my bust point, or apex. And then I'm also going to draw my dart. So from the apex to the notch, draw my dart legs. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this dart here and I'm going to move it over here. So they tell you, oh, here, again, just a reminder, they call this one A and this one B. So they have you, I think they just have you cut the whole thing out, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So they have you cut the whole thing out. Ooh, these are hard to cut with. So that's the space that I need to move. And then they have you cut on the line that you want to move it to.
So in an actual muslin, we would cut that.
You're not cutting muslin.
I know, but if it were to be muslin.
Well, it would already be a pattern.
We're making the pattern that will be cut
I
out
know,
of muslin.
I know, but I'm
Okay.
just saying, like, if we were to actually make this in real life,
Mhm.
we would have to cut out the A and B part on the muslin as well.
No.
Because it would already be that way.
So this dart is going to disappear.
Oh, because it'll be already that way in the pattern, like,
Yeah.
and then you just transfer.
So
Okay.
this dart is going to disappear. So I'm going to tape it shut. Only my tape disappeared. So I just slashed the spot where I wanted the dart and then spread it. So I closed the dart here and moved it over there. So now I have to true this. So I think what we should do first is just make all these little guys, like just trace them off, cut your dart out, cut on the line, move your dart to wherever it needs to go, and just leave it like that for now. And then we'll come back in a minute and actually turn it into, like what you were saying, if it's something that we're gonna cut out of muslin, what do you do to it to finish that? And for that, I like to do it on brown paper. Do you guys happen to bring brown paper? Okay,
I
if
have
not, I
some.
grabbed some scrap out of the bin. I'm gonna like put that back so you guys can have it, and I'll get some from somewhere else so that you can use the scrap. You don't need very much. These little guys are easy.
I have
So
some if you
so
want.
start doing that. If you have any trouble, then I'll come back. For those of you that are already done with the block, I'll come back and show you the rest of them if you think you need to see it.